modern technology. It's interesting. 6 months ago, my business celebrated its 10-year anniversary, and since that time, people have been coming into the shop and asking me everywhere they meet me, what's the secret to success? I'm like, wow, I'm not sure. I didn't know I had to have that answer. But when I was first asked to speak with you guys today, I was terrified. And my first response in my head was, no, I cannot do that. I can't do that. I'm not comfortable doing that. But the words that actually came out of my mouth, it's important to note, were yes. Absolutely. I'm humbled and honored to have been asked to be here today, and of course, I would do that. So here I am, despite the fact that my first response was flight. And I titled my speech with you this morning, Jumping the Roadblocks to Success, because I think it's something that's relevant to all of us in our lives. And it's sometimes so hard to understand how to do that. And the reason I titled it is because so often those roadblocks to success are the things that we throw out there ourselves. You see, I've learned through years of owning my own business that in order to run an effective business, and in order to be successful in any aspect of my life, I have to be willing to jump the roadblocks to success. I tell people all the time that what finally enabled me to start my business and freed me to take the necessary steps to do the work, to take the risk, to own a business, I finally realized that somebody believed I could, and that somebody was me. And I've taught my 4- and 6-year-old that when they feel overwhelmed and they're afraid of failure, that they close their eyes and they visualize themselves doing what needs to be done. And they see themselves doing it well. And they take a deep breath and they know that they can do anything they set their minds free to do. It's very empowering, and you can use that trick yourself. So often the roadblocks to success for me have always been of my own making. And I've taught myself to suppress that instant reflex that says I can't. And I live now inside a sphere of I can. And my husband makes this joke when we're trying to get vines out of the tree this past weekend. He says, I can't do it, it's not doing it, don't go up the ladder, don't bother, it's not going to come out, it's all tangled in there. And I get up there and I yank this thing out, and he's like, yeah, see, that's that I can sphere. I'm just not quite there yet. But I live there, and I've taught myself to live there. So what is success? It's a tough question for people, and in my mind, success is ending every single day feeling good about yourself. It's about feeling like you've done something of value, and feeling like you've left some small mark on the world when the timeline of life comes to an end. It's about feeling like you're a good person, and that you've shared of yourself and your resources willingly, happily, and without strings. How do we measure success? Sometimes success is about career. Sometimes it's about relationships, family. Do we want to be millionaires? Maybe. Maybe some of us are driven for that. Is it in money? Sometimes. Sometimes. But then again, money often follows because you've been working hard towards something that feels right. Feels like what you were purposed to do. Do we want to be the best at what we do every day? Absolutely. I've never met anybody that says I aspire to mediocrity. And those who allow themselves to live in mediocrity get nothing more than mediocrity. The path of a career, or a life, or a family, it's all driven by you, the individual. The collective benefits, the collective world, your community, your family, your neighborhood, the people around you, friends, peers, associates, they all benefit from the effort that you put in to living. And success can be measured only by your sense of self-worth and value. And so today I would say to you that you have to first value yourself in order to be of value to others. If you want to do something, It sounds so easy to say, you can do it simply by willing it to be so. But the truth of the matter is, willing something to be so is not on its own enough. What's important, what's truly important, is that you live that experience. You have to see yourself doing that and visualize yourself successful in whatever role it is you want to take on. Let's imagine for a moment, since most of us are women here, that you want to take on the hardest job in the world. Does anybody know what that is? It's being a mom. That's right. So in order to be successful as a mom, you have to visualize yourself in that role. You have to really think about and anticipate what that entire job description really is before you commit yourself to it. And once you've taken that on and started to roll it around in your brain, and you really visualize yourself living that, being a mom to a child, doing things with that child, and teaching that child tasks and life goals that you feel are important, and instilling whatever moral value you have in that child, you have to visualize yourself doing those things. You have to see yourself fully in that role before the role comes upon you, or you will never be fully successful. Without the time spent visualizing yourself successful in any role or task before you begin, you're holding yourself content to stumble through rather than to live with the reins of control in your own hands. I'm a big believer that you have to love what you do. If you don't love what you do, you'll never do it well. One of the first steps to success is to have goals that line up with your passions and interests. And I heard Donald Trump say one time that he's only successful because he does what he loves to do. He works hard at doing what he loves. So love what you do. Spend your time and energy doing something that feels valuable to you. That alone will ground you and give you the focus you need to get through a day that's hard, because there will always be hard days. And the secret is to know that what you're doing is what you were purposed to do. Always make the biggest goal in your day to end the day feeling like you've been of value. My guest speaker bio says that I'm an optician and that I fit awesome eyewear for people, and I do. But what it doesn't say is that I'm in the confidence building business. I really believe that every pair of eyeglasses should tell a thoughtful story about the wearer. And if you're a client of mine, you've heard me say that eyewear can and should be a personal expression of who you are to the world. And a really good pair of eyeglasses will not only make you see well and look great, but they'll give you the confidence to conquer your biggest roadblocks. And when we take the time to get dressed in the morning, and we style our hair, and we put on an awesome pair of eyeglasses, it's not vanity. It's our way of bolstering ourselves for the day ahead. And I believe in that. I believe in dress for success. It's another empowering moment in our lives as women. Successful people also know it's okay to talk to yourself. How many of you own a smartphone or a tablet that you carry with you? Okay. As a mother and a business leader, my time is not my own. And I use a voice recorder memo that's become my best friend. It's on my phone. And if you ever see me in the parking lot of a preschool in an empty car talking to myself, it's because I'm taking a moment to organize my day, right? I also use that voice recorder to provide myself affirmations and reminders that keep me living in that sphere of I can. So go ahead and take the time to talk to yourself every day. Play it back at the end of your day and dance a little victory dance around even the minutia. Anything you've accomplished, it's a victory. I guarantee it will change your productivity and it'll increase your motivation. Because your energy, your self-discipline, your motivation, they're resources that have to be refueled routinely. When you're doing work that understimulates you and underutilizes your talents, you begin to atrophy, and that has a domino effect on your life. And the biggest motivator in my life has always been my ability to recognize and remind myself that the pain of not doing will inevitably hurt more than the pain of doing. In other words, don't ever let yourself wake up with regret. Don't look back and think, I could have done that. I should have done that. Use the fear of that moment to launch yourself fully into your own version of a successful life. And always recognize that the pain of not doing will always outweigh the risk and efforts involved in trying. Stop putting up your roadblocks. I heard a motivational speaker say recently that so often our family and the people closest to us, he didn't use this term, but I'm going to use it, become roadblocks to our success. And I thought to myself, how is it your family, the people who love you, the people closest to you, how is it they could be roadblocks? And the answer lies in the fact that those closest to us have a preconceived notion of who we have been, who we are, and they're comfortable with that vision of us in their minds. And they're comfortable with that role that we fill in their lives. And change is uncomfortable for everyone. And when you go to make a change in your life, when you want to change your role, when you want to change your stride, because now you're striding for success in a specific area, and it's sometimes uncomfortable for the people around us. Randy Gage says, those closest to us hold us to a standard that we have already met, but they don't always hold us to a standard of what we can be. And that's important. It's important to realize that to meet your full potential, sometimes we have to look outside ourselves. We sometimes need a mentor that can say to us, I know you can do more. I know you can be more. And sometimes we can't recognize the potential in ourselves, and we need others to recognize that potential in us. And more often than not, that recognition comes from people slightly outside your inner circle. And it's why luncheons like this are so important to our personal growth and development. So kudos to you for being here today. Let's say for a moment that you say to me, I'm going to be the first female president of the United States, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. I can't do it. It's just really unlikely. Money, roadblocks everywhere. And I would say to you, it's not going to happen. Because you've said it's not going to happen. Your mind has already told you it's unlikely and therefore not worth trying. But what if you turn that around and you allow yourself to believe you can? What if you stop saying, I can't, and you stop saying it's unlikely? And you stop putting roadblocks in front of yourself through your own fears and your own unwillingness to work toward that goal. You would be unstoppable. Unstoppable. So often in my career, I have found that many of the roadblocks that have sat in front of me were of my own making. And these roadblocks could only be jumped when I was willing to take the steps to get over them. I recently read a book called Eat That Frog. Mark Twain once said, the first thing you do in the morning, you eat a live frog, you can go through the day with the satisfaction of knowing it's probably the worst thing that's going to happen to you for the rest of the day. But in the book by Brian Tracy, he speaks to the importance of acknowledging that first and foremost, our running to-do list is forever long. It will never be completed. But that should not be your defeat, but rather empower us to prioritize. And in doing so, do the biggest, most difficult tasks first, and make the rest of the list more palatable. In other words, eat the live frog first, and empower yourself to own the rest of your day. I'm a collector of words and phrases that inspire me, and sometimes they're music lyrics. And I recently saw Paula Cole at the Barns at Wolf Trap, and I was really struck by how emotional and deep her music is. And one of the songs that stuck with me was a story song called Strong, Beautiful Woman. And now on my laptop at home, every time I open it up, I have this little note scrolled across the top, and it says, remember, strong, beautiful woman. Sometimes the phrases that I collect are movie lines, and everybody that's a Facebook friend with me knows that Movie Line Monday, every Monday on my page. And I pick a line that generally has some relevance to my day or week. And this week, Movie Line Monday was do or do not. There is no try. Spoken by none other than the Yoda of my childhood. And sometimes my collections are bits and pieces of great literary work, famous world religious leaders. And I have these little phrases and affirmation words scattered all over my shop, predominantly at the front desk. And I love that I can glance down during a phone conversation or while working with a client and be stilled for a moment by words that reach through time and speak to me just when I might need them the most. And so it's only natural that eventually my path would cross with Mac Anderson. Does anybody know who Mac Anderson is? Nobody? Okay. He's the founder of Successories, the company that paired nature photography with uplifting quotes and posters. And they're used widely to foster positive corporate culture in organizations all over the world. And he's like me. He's a collector of quotes. He made not one, but 2 amazing businesses out of it. And one day a client came in and she gave me a book called Charging the Human Battery. And it was a book published by Mac Anderson. And it turns out he has a company called Simple Truths that publishes short readable books that are all geared toward providing inspiration. And I enjoyed that book so much that I bought one for everybody in my life. And over the course of the years since that time, I've become a little bit of a follower of Mac Anderson's. And I'm intrigued by people who can take what seem a very simple idea and turn it into a multi-million-dollar industry. One of my favorite stories that Mac Anderson tells is that early in his career, when he was having a particularly difficult day, a peer of his came into his office and offered him this little golden nugget of advice from his grandmother, right? Inch by inch, life's a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard. And since hearing him tell that story, I use that phrase frequently. It helps me keep things in perspective and helps me remember that the one foot in front of the other approach works, especially when the road you're on is long and the tasks seem so daunting that it's hard to even get started. So remember, if nothing else that you take from today, inch by inch, life's a cinch. Yard by yard, life is hard. One of the most effective ways we can jump the roadblocks to our success is to have an eye for the big picture and a willingness to take baby steps that get us there. Success rarely comes in one giant leap. That magic tipping point more often comes in the baby steps that we take with focus and determination. Speaking of tipping points, on a totally different occasion, very early in my business, a client came in to me and she said, "I'm going to say something to you, Paige, and I want you to know I mean it with the best possible light." And I thought, oh boy. And she said, "Paige, you're like a virus." And I said, "What? Did she just call me a virus and mean well?" But she handed me a copy of Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point. She told me to read the book so that I could better understand. Have you read the book? It's a good book. And I enjoyed this book so much that I not only went out and bought one for everyone in my life, I actually bought a copy for the Leesburg Town Manager and the Leesburg Town Council. And I made myself go and speak in council chambers about how valuable the information in that book is for any leader in any industry, including my town government, perhaps even more so for my town government. And it turns out, you know what? Darn if I'm not a virus, but I'm okay with that. And to this day, all these many years later, I'm grateful to that client for opening my eyes to the hundreds of possible tipping points that I have surrounding me daily, just waiting for me to turn up to the next degree. In Mac Anderson's 212-degree speech, he says, 211 degrees, water is really hot. But at 212 degrees, water comes to a boil and produces steam that can power a locomotive. You can be a really good employee. You can be a really good wife, mother, business leader, entrepreneur. But what are you doing to push yourself that next degree? That one degree that creates the tipping point that positively powers your life. You never have to end your day feeling overwhelmed and defeated. Set small, attainable goals every day that help shape the living sculpture that is your life. This is the simple key to turning every day into a success story. And be buoyant. Whenever the responsibilities of life get to be overwhelming, I go to a quiet place. For me, it is called the thinking shop. And I use the thinking chair to spend just a quiet moment or two gathering my thoughts and meditating on a simple subject so that the entire picture can come back into full focus for me again. And a client, a friend of mine, is an international writing coach, and he periodically posts specific words that are meditation points to help his clients regain focus. And recently, one of his meditation points was buoyant. And so your assignment today is to find a thinking chair of your own. And when life hands you too much to handle and you feel a little overwhelmed and you don't know where to begin, I want you to stop and take a moment and meditate on the word buoyant. Feel yourself as being buoyant. And accept that you can be buoyant and that you can rise above. In closing today, I want to remind you that whether you're leading a multi-million-dollar industry or a two-person family, every day counts. Every day is a gift. And every day is an opportunity to shape your life and write your story. Make sure that when you turn to look back, it is not to look back in regret, but rather to reach back and give your hand to another who needs help jumping the roadblocks to success story that lives in every one of us. Thank you very much for your time today. I did bring, as a good little Southern girl, a gift, because no self-respecting Southern girl goes to a party without something in hand. And my favorite number is the number 4, and so lucky Elaine Gibson is at table 4, and she was number 4 on the list, and I brought you a copy of Charging the Human Battery by Mac Anderson. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, she's agreed to take some questions. So I'm opening it up to the audience. If you have a question for Paige.
I do, actually. It's good since you were a mom that you have a 4- and 6-year-old. I do too, and I'm always trying to kind of talk to my daughter now, who's 10, about some of this kind of stuff you're talking about. How have you kind of incorporated that in your parenting, some of your beliefs and those things?
Well, just as I said, in everything I do, everything I incorporate in my own life, one of the things I do with my kids is I teach them that they're not allowed to use the words, I can't. If I'm not allowed to do it, they're not allowed to do it. And that's powerful because I think we need to know that those are bad words. Those are words that don't get us anywhere. And it's really important for your daughter, you said she's a daughter, that we're instilling as women that power of I can't. The world is a hard place. And there's lots of ugliness out there, and we sort of teach each other that in the family, we have to be about I can. And we have to be about helping one another do that.
Any more questions?
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I really like your line about inch by inch, life's a cinch. And it made me think that if I could just remember that sometimes, it would be really helpful. So maybe I'll start walking around with a measuring tape in my purse.
Well, it's funny you say that, and I genuinely am a collector of words and phrases, and when I heard that, it sort of stuck with me because it's so simple, right? And when Mac Anderson talks about that point, he says that he looked at his peer like, I am having the worst day possible, and this is what you're giving me? Really? Words of advice from your grandmother? But he hung on to it. And he created 2 multi-million-dollar industries out of it. So, good stuff.
Well, we have a gift for you. We would like to know if you would prefer a massage or a facial.
Oh, always take the massage. My last piece of advice.
We are going to get that gift certificate to you. We don't have it here today. But thank you so much.
Thank you very much.